When is Teresa ever going to leave this house? It's quite embarrassing to have a shut-in neat around the house. Have you planned your move yet? I'll be out of here by today. I can't stand the sight of you, Lenny, anyway. It was clear to anyone that Lenny, my sister-in-law, who ridiculed me with a smirk, was trying to take over our house. However, there was a reason I decided to move out and let her have the house. I had a firm belief that Lenny would not be able to live in this house for long. My name is Teresa. I live with my dad, Mom, and Lenny, my brother's wife. My brother was assigned to work overseas shortly after getting married, and Lenny firmly refused to live abroad. Lenny ended up living in our house, shamelessly so, despite being in the so-called newlywed stage and living separately from my brother. I remember well the day Lenny came to our house. She brought a lot of luggage with her and said without any remorse, "Edwin has gone overseas, so his room is vacant, right? I've decided to live there." My parents and I were baffled when Lenny came to the house without any prior discussion. When we called my brother to ask for an explanation, he was also surprised by Lenny's actions. Though my brother, who had just been assigned overseas, did respond, it was ultimately up to my parents and me, who were in direct contact with Lenny, to have the discussion. After getting married, Lenny was supposed to live in the house where my brother lived alone. However, when we asked why she suddenly came to the house, Lenny said the room was too small. I had been to my brother's room, and it didn't seem too small. But Lenny had already unilaterally terminated the lease of my brother's room. Since her parents lived far away and our house was conveniently located for her to get to work, she insisted on living in the house. Naturally, my parents were angry about Lenny's outrageous behavior, but Lenny was smart. Edwin has gone overseas, and I'm lonely too. Of course, I plan to contribute financially since I'll be living here. I'll also do my best with housework, so please, let me stay in this house. When Lenny pleaded like this, my parents couldn't refuse. I think one of the reasons my parents couldn't strongly reject Lenny was for my brother's sake. My parents didn't seem to mind living with Lenny, which had started suddenly. They were angry about her coming without any discussion, but Lenny was doing housework, as she said, going to work, and paying rent to my parents. However, I was nothing but dissatisfied. For some reason I don't know, Lenny had made me her enemy. "Oh, Teresa, you're as unattractive as ever today." I was utterly surprised when she said that as soon as she saw me when I came out of my room in the morning. I don't think my face is attractive at all, but I was naturally surprised when she suddenly said such a thing. "Teresa, aren't you ashamed to be a shut-in all the time? Edwin is so respectable, going on an overseas assignment, and my in-laws have earned enough to live in such a large house, while you, Teresa, are just a neat, playing at home all the time. I would be too ashamed to stay in such a house if I were you." Today my parents were at work and Lenny seemed to be off. Is she assuming I won't tell our parents about her nasty words? No need to feel embarrassed. I'm not a neat, I answer, laughing internally at her absurdity. Sure, my job requires me to be at home a lot, but that doesn't make me a neat. But my sincere answer simply triggers a burst of laughter from Lenny. "Oh, come on, Teresa. Your brother's a successful man, and I work for a prestigious company. Even your parents are respected employees. I understand you might feel a bit inferior, but there's no need to lie." "I'm not lying. I'm an influencer." "An influencer? Please, stop making me laugh. As if someone as plain as you could be an influencer. That's a job for gorgeous models." She responds, brushing her elegantly curled hair off her shoulder, ignoring my protests, and shoving past me. As she strides away, a heavy cloud of her perfume lingers in the air. "When will you finally move out, Teresa? It's so embarrassing to have a shut-in neat in the house. Have you found a new place yet?" She suddenly stops mid-stride, turning around with a malicious grin on her face. "I'll give you an allowance, Teresa. You must be in dire need of money, right? It's only fair for all the housework you do. Laughing softly, she pulls a few $10 bills from her wallet and throws them onto the floor. "Well, see you," she says, leaving the house. Her dismissive attitude really gets under my skin. I'm not only frustrated with Lenny, but also disappointed with my brother's lack of discernment. Did they really think I would just stay silent after such a provocation? Perhaps Lenny saw me as a quiet and meek sister-in-law, but I'm not the type of woman to just sit back and take it. I pick up the strewn money, open the door to Lenny's room without her permission, and throw it inside. She sure had a lot of nerve, acting so high and mighty over a few tens of dollars. Luckily for me, I'm not strapped for cash. I had planned to relax today, but now it seems I'll be quite busy. After tidying up and finishing my work for the day, I start packing my things. I can't stand living under the same roof as Lenny any longer. I decide to move in to my boyfriend's house. Nathan, my boyfriend, with whom I've been discussing marriage plans, is understanding and agrees to accommodate me as soon as I explain the situation. Meanwhile, I make a call to a certain place in the morning. From the moment she came to greet us as a prospective wife, Lenny had always looked down on me. She's probably the type of person who needs to assert her dominance over someone to feel alive. By the time I finish my tasks, my parents return home. I don't mention anything about Lenny. Instead, I join my parents for dinner, a meal I had prepared. Lenny, who had claimed to be out with friends, hadn't returned yet. She said she wouldn't be home for dinner, so I guess she'll return late. I chose not to tell my parents about Lenny yet, waiting for the right moment. Lenny was in for a surprise, and I planned to hit her with it at the worst possible moment. I'm moving in with Nathan starting today. I'll be out of here by tonight. That's quite sudden. Nathan's okay with it? Yep, he agreed, and we're thinking about getting married soon. Well, as long as it's fine by him, just make sure to let him know we said hi. I broke the news to my worried parents, finished washing the dishes with my melancholic mom, and then I picked up my packed belongings and headed out of my room. And there, right on cue, stood Lenny. Dolled up in heavy makeup, Lenny's grin stretched across her face like she'd just spotted her prey. "When will you finally leave this house, Teresa? It's so embarrassing to have a shut-in neat like you around. Is your moving day coming soon?" "I'll be gone today. Trust me, I'm as eager to get away from you as you are to see me gone." Lenny's expression twisted in response to my direct reply. She glared at her cheeky sister-in-law. Her ugly face was truly a sight to behold. No offense to my brother, but I could do without a sister-in-law like her. The next time we'd meet, I'd be ready to serve her a dose of revenge. Well, excuse me then. I bid Lenny farewell, said goodbye to my parents who were relaxing in front of the television downstairs, and left the house. Nathan had said to me, "You probably won't need to deal with your sister-in-law again." But I loved my brother. He was a good-natured man being duped by Lenny, and I couldn't just stand by knowing that. Thanks for your concern, but Lenny needs to be completely ousted from our house. A few days after I left home, I got a call from Mom. "You, giving us such a shock by suddenly sending that. Just come home and explain. We've already informed your brother, but he can't make it back right away, so we'll video call him. We've also asked Lenny to take off from work, so hurry back." I responded to Mom's call, which came in late in the afternoon with an okay, and after texting Nathan that I was heading to my parents' house, I left. The family house that I returned to after several days felt heavy with tension the moment I walked in. As I approached the living room, Lenny's cries became louder. When I opened the door, Lenny was hunched over in front of my parents, seated on the sofa. I could feel her glaring at me. "Teresa, this is terrible. Why would you send these pictures?" Lenny pointed to a series of pictures sprawled across the coffee table. The pictures were of Lenny with various men at different locations, some with arms linked, hands held, images of intimacy. The sender, as Lenny indicated, was, of course, me. Private investigators can be quite useful, I thought. On the morning I left home, I had contacted a private investigator to check if my sister-in-law was cheating, transferred the money, and that was it. From just that, such indisputable evidence was procured. "You're the terrible one. What do you mean by doing whatever you want just because I'm not there?" The one shouting was my brother, connected via video call. His face, displayed on the screen, was beet red from anger. Lenny cried out to my brother, "But I was lonely. You always travel abroad even though we're newlyweds, Edwin. You left me alone. You're the one at fault, Edwin." I could feel the anger radiating from my parents' faces, but I calmly stated, "You're right. The fault lies with my brother." Lenny's expression turned to one of disbelief as she looked at me. I leveled my gaze at her, allowing no warmth to seep through. "The real problem is my brother's lack of judgment in choosing a woman like you." Lenny, taken aback at my words, leaned in toward me, fuming. "What? You've got some nerve, you hideous shut-in, telling me such things. All this chaos, it's your fault." Despite the presence of my parents and brother, Lenny couldn't hold back her true colors. As she realized what she had just blurted out, her hand flew to her mouth. But it was too late. My parents and brother were taken aback, but I just flatly declared, "Lenny is always like this. Lenny thinks of me as an ugly shut-in. She played the nice girl in front of everyone else, but she cheats and she doesn't hesitate to be abusive to anyone she perceives as beneath her. My brother is also at fault for choosing to marry such a person." "I was just stating the truth. After all, Teresa is a shut-in, not an influencer. That's just a lie, right?" The one who sighed at Lenny's brazen defiance was Mom. I had no idea that Lenny was like this. Yes, Teresa spends a lot of time at home, but she's not a shut-in. She's a real influencer. Eh? As Lenny gasped in surprise, I shared the name I use for my influencer activities. I suggested she look it up on her mobile phone, and she hurriedly began her search. Upon seeing the search results, a flustered Lenny looked back and forth between me and her phone. Then, with an expression of disbelief, she pointed at me. "Really? Teresa is this person?" "Yep. Makeup is like magic, isn't it? I'm a beauty influencer. Born with a nondescript face, I use makeup to transform it, creating countless videos of my makeovers and posting them online. I sometimes receive requests from cosmetic companies to advertise their products in my videos. Thankfully, I have a large fan base, and when people think of beauty influencers, my name is often one that comes to mind. This house was built with the money Teresa earned." "This huge house?" Lenny gasped in response. I guess it's hard to believe that someone like me could have built a house in such a prime location so close to the station. As Lenny stood there, dumbfounded, the doorbell rang. Wondering who could be visiting at such an hour, I, the only one standing, answered it. A familiar voice rang out. "Can I come in?" "Yeah, sure," I responded, and the owner of the voice entered. Seeing Nathan walk in through the living room door, Lenny recoiled. What? Why is Nathan here?" "Oh, you must be the sister-in-law I've heard about. It's nice to know you recognize me. Thank you," Nathan replied, his radiant smile lighting up the room. He's been an actor since his childhood. We had met at a social gathering for content creators and hit it off right away. Nathan and I had been in a relationship for several years, but we kept it a secret. Upon Nathan's appearance, it seemed that Lenny really believed that I was an influencer. Lenny weakly murmured, "No way." From the other side of the screen, my brother told her, "This isn't a time for you to be upset about that." Things quickly spiraled from there. My brother declared to Lenny that he would demand a settlement and file for divorce. He was going to take a break and return to the U.S., and until then, he instructed Lenny to wait. Lenny's parents lived far away, so she had to stay at our house until my brother returned. With our parents looking at Lenny as if she were something disgusting, it was clear that the days until my brother's return would be harsh and painful for her. Once we confirmed that my brother had escaped a woman like Lenny, Nathan and I decided to head home. On the drive back, I asked Nathan, "Why did you come with me?" He replied, "I didn't want my future wife, Teresa, to be mistreated." I found myself smiling at Nathan's kindness. My brother returned to the States 2 weeks later. During that time, Lenny had apparently taken a leave and locked herself in her room. While drafting the divorce papers, she was said to be crying, "I love Edwin the most." But my brother didn't waver at all. After the divorce was finalized, Lenny apparently began living alone. But the men who used to entertain her wouldn't associate with her anymore due to the shock of the divorce and her subsequent weight loss. Unable to receive help from anyone, Lenny repeatedly called my brother, but he blocked her calls. Furthermore, he went abroad again, leaving Lenny with no one to rely on. She quit her job and returned to her parents' home. Ironically, Lenny, who used to mock shut-in NEETs, had become one herself. Since then, my brother has been careful about his relationships with women, but he met a wonderful woman abroad and married her. The new sister-in-law, a brave woman with beautiful blonde hair, is learning English so that she can communicate with me and our parents. In time, Nathan and I also got married. Our wedding made the news. The marriage of Nathan, who had been beloved since his childhood acting days, was celebrated, and I was accepted by the public as Nathan's wife. Now that everything is resolved and peaceful, my family and I are living happily.